Hi, it's Jen from Shabby Fabrics. I have a practical project for you today that I know every quilter, any seamstress would appreciate, and that is an organizer right by your sewing machine that's propped up with those most important notions that you're always grabbing for. Now, true confessions, I am probably one of the messiest quilters I've ever known. And the reason I know that is I've gone to enough quilt retreats to watch and see how other quilters manage to stay organized, kind of compact in their given space. I am not that person. This product was really something I absolutely am going to have actually two of those by my sewing machine. And I can't wait to show you how fun and easy these are to make. So let's start off with what is this thing and what's the kit look like? First off, in our kit, we're not putting any fabric because you're going to want to be able to choose whatever it is that fits your needs. What's cool is to make the organizer, it's only 2 fat quarters. Now we use True Color for the one that I'll be demonstrating today by Tula Pink. We love Tula's designs. She's an incredible artist, so innovative and creative, and we're inspired by her designs. But you can see even Glad Tidings, a Christmas collection, is beautiful. Blue Meadow by Marcus Brothers, more of the classic kind of, just kind of that classic look, but then kind of that edgy, fresh Tula Pink look. It really looks great in a variety of fabrics. So let yourself go, make more than one. I'm sure you will, not only for yourself, but they're great to give as a gift. Now, this is a longer video. Why? This isn't something that most of us who are quilters, this is completely foreign to us. So I want to be able to take you through every single step. I've made multiples of these, so I've learned some things, and I'm going to give you some modifications. In the pattern, they talk about making 3 kind of columns so that you have 3 different sections. It's easier to maybe see it in this one. What I found was my largest rotary cutter, which I like to store face down. I could store it in this one face up, but I wanted to have it so that the blade was face down. So this one I made a modification where there's 2 channels instead of the 3. We'll go through all of those things, but just know you can really tailor make that for your needs to fit what notions you know that you want to put inside there. So I'll push those aside for just a moment. I'll be using this one today. This little thing in the front, she calls it a pincushion. You could put pins in there, of course, pincushion. I put my Wonder Clips. I know we'll be using some Wonder Clips today, and I have a variety of pins that I have on my magnetic pin cushion. So I'm going to keep them on the pin cushion because, again, I tend to be kind of a klutz, and I like them secured down to the pin cushion. So what's included in the Sew Organized kit is you get your metal frame. I had a chance to talk to the designer of this pattern, who's the Fat Quarter Gypsy. And this is a family that makes these here in the United States. And I love that. I love that this is really a homegrown business and the family's all involved. The father and son build the metal frames and mom designs the patterns. And so they have graciously allowed me to show you the entire pattern so that you can be successful from start to finish. Now with each one of the frames, you get the free pattern. What's also included inside there is a piece of elastic, which will be used right here for these pockets. And you'll also be getting the Fat Quarter Gypsy. It's kind of a label that you can insert in here. And she gives you the liberty, of course, you don't have to put that in if you don't want. I didn't include it in this one, but I have it on the 2 just because I thought it was cute. So that's also included. So let's put those aside for now. I will put this over here. We know that we're going to be, I've already got one opened up. And we'll get to all the notions. We'll just talk through the notions as we use them. I find that's a little more helpful than me explaining what those are. They will become self-explanatory as we go along, and you'll see why each one of those is important to have on the table with me today. So we will wait till the very end to put our form on top of the shape, so I can put that aside for now as well. Let's dive right into the pattern. If you are, I asked the designer about what if somebody wants to be able to make multiples. Do they buy refills of just the frame? So her response was, because the pattern is free with each frame that you buy, you will just buy the frames in multiples and you will automatically get that pattern again and again. So, and she's including that for free. So that's not an additional cost. Let me grab my glasses. Let's jump right into it. I've labeled my fabrics and I found that to be really helpful. So organized. We have 2 fabrics, as I mentioned. Now in her, I want to show you this. In her sample, she has a red fabric and a green fabric. So she refers to fabric A as the red fabric and fabric B as the green fabric. So in our case, our fabric A would be our background here and our fabric B would be here. So you just want to first acclimate yourself to what's your A and what's your B. So you can refer to her photo to say, okay, maybe I want Tula's, maybe that green to be here and maybe a blue there. And so you acclimate, you understand what your A and B is. And you'll cut your fabrics to size, which I've done ahead of time, and labeled. I found that to be very important because I was getting confused. I don't always label my fabrics, but I find that when I do projects that are non-quilting, I need it. It's just not my first language to do totes and bags and things like this. And it helps me stay organized. So let's just review this. My fabric A is here. I've cut my pocket 2, and that's to 11 by 6.5, and I've labeled that. And then I have 2 of my 9 by 6.5, and that's considered my front. That's my pocket. Excuse me. This is my pocket 2, and my 2 of these pieces that are the identical size. The 9 by 6.5 are the front, and it's also the back of the organizer. So I want to show you that as well. So that'll help you get a reference of what we're doing. So let's put that over here. Our fabric B, our first piece is our pocket 1, and that's our pocket right here. So we can put that aside. Our pocket 3, and that's the portion down here. And then we have the smaller piece for the pincushion, and that's down below. So now you know how the fabrics are labeled. And it's definitely helpful, as you can imagine, to go ahead and label that. Let me try to get some of this out of the way. It's always a challenge on set just to find the space we need so I can spread out. I told you, I already confessed. I need space. I'm a messy quilter and apparently messy crafter. I will truly be using my organizer today throughout our video. Step 1. Okay, I'm jumping ahead. Stabilizer. I've got my fabrics cut. Lightweight fusible stabilizer. I want to show you something else. Let me show you the inside of this. Maybe that'll be helpful if I actually take this off here and show it to you. First, it just slides off. So if you have any need, you say, you know what, I'm done with that. I just want to make another one and change them out seasonally. You don't need to buy another frame. You can just use the one that you have, keep the pattern, and just make it again. So that's another option for you if you like to be able to change out the look in your sewing room. And that's fun too. But what I wanted to show you was the stabilizer. Look inside here and see that there's stabilizer in here. So this is where the stabilizer comes into play. She gives us a couple of options, and I'm going to let you know what those options are and what I did so that you can decide for yourself what you prefer. The stabilizer in the inside is not negotiable. You really need that. But she mentions about stabilizer for pocket 2. By the way, stabilizer, fusible interfacing, same thing. We have the Pellon 950F, which is an incredible product. We're using it not only for that, but a lot of other crafting, even face masks. For if you want to be lining a face mask, that's a possibility as well. I made one with the lined, with the interfacing on the back and one without. I don't really think that I am concerned about adding that. I believe I have that with me today. I do have that cut out. So I can show that to you, and then you can choose to do it or not. Scraps of cotton batting. There are scraps of cotton batting in there. She's calling for 2 or 3 1.5 by 5 inch rectangles for the pincushion. So that's something you'll want to cut as well. Marking. When instructed to mark, use chalk or other removable pen. I have 2 things with me. I have both chalk and a friction pen. And she definitely says to make sure that you test those on your fabric before you commit to using them, especially the heat erasing pen. And that would be the friction pen. I have noticed on dark fabrics, maybe that Glad Tidings with the black, that when I draw a line, first off, you're not going to see it, right? Because it's black on black. But let's say I were to draw a black line on that dark red and try to iron it away. It might leave that little bit of that haze, kind of that shadow of where it had been. However, when I use the friction pen on lighter colored fabrics, I don't have any issue when I iron it away. So that's that. And of course, when you can use chalk, if you use chalk, that you never have to worry about that. That just wipes away. We've got our label. She has us trim that to 2 3/4. So if you choose to go ahead and add the label in, let me just grab my rotary cutter real quick. If you do choose to use the label, let's go ahead and we'll just trim that up to 2 3/4, and we'll have that ready to go. And that, of course, will come in at a very specific step along the way. Let's see here, 2 3/4. All right, I will put that aside for the moment. And put that back. I am going to literally concentrate on staying organized. I wanted to point out, like I said, here, this will fit. So if you decide to do the 3 pockets, the 45 millimeter rotary cutter will fit, but it's splayed up. So if you want to be able to do blade down, you'll follow the option I give you a little bit later on, where we have 2 pockets here instead of the 3. And that way you'll be able to have that face down. Your preference, whatever you want to do. Put that one aside. All right, let's move straight into it now. Pocket 1. So pocket 1 to the front. So let's grab our pocket 1. Isn't that nice that I can just now look at the stickers and I don't have to reacclimate to my pattern? So to my front. Step 1, fold over 3.5 inches of fabric B to the wrong side. That kind of threw me a little bit initially. What she wants us to do is fold this pocket over. Let me get my iron heating up. We're going to use that right away. So we're going to measure. I'll try to get my head out of the way. You'll just lay this down. Of course, we use these to cut everything out initially. I'll put those aside just to buy us some space. 6.5 inch ruler, before I just put that away so quickly, I found exceptionally helpful on this project because so many of the cuts were 6.5 inches wide. And this ruler this is the 6.5 by 12.5. That was my go-to ruler, cutting this thing out the whole time. So really worked out really nicely. So let's measure that over by 3.5. So I'm just measuring 1, 2, 3.5. Okay, and then we'll just take that over here and we can take that sticker off for now and we'll iron that down. And we're going to go straight to our sewing machine and we'll sew 1/4 inch away from that fold. Now, here's something I'd love to introduce as an option to you. This pocket, we're bringing this pocket in right here. If you want to put a pretty decorative stitch, do it. I just did a straight stitch, but later on I thought, hey, this would be really fun to add maybe a flower stitch to that. If you have some nice stitches on your machine, it might be fun to choose something like that. So that's just an idea. So we folded over 3.5 inches of fabric B to the wrong side. And I love how she says folded size is 7.5 by 8.5. So let's check ourselves to see we're 6.5 by 7.5. And I just appreciate that she gives us that measurement so we can make sure we folded it the right way. Press, fold, and top stitch next to fold. So let's go ahead and do that. I have the confetti color 614 in the top. It's kind of a light lilac you are going to see that thread. Thread matters on this one. Normally, you know how normally I just have white, gray, and black because I'm piecing, I'm quilting. Here, those threads matter. So think about what colors might look best for you to put on. I didn't change my thread. I chose one to coordinate with the whole thing. On this one, I chose a light lilac. On that one, it was kind of like a taupey gray that seemed to work well with all of the 2 different fabrics. So let's jump into that. We're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam. Okay, pin pocket 1 to the 6.5 by 9, which is the front, with the wrong side of the pocket to the right side of the, so basically here. That's all we're doing, is we're just going to lay that on here. And she has you based 1/8 of an inch and then across the bottom. So let's go ahead and do that now. Okay, so the sides, you could go side across the bottom and back up the other side. She didn't mention as a pointer when we spoke on the phone. She thought just stabilizing the sides first so there's no shifting, and then doing the bottom might be a better approach. Next step will be to go ahead and measure 3¼ inches below that fold. And now we're going to sew again, and that's going to create that pocket. So this pocket here, let me show you this, is a shorter pocket, okay? So if you have anything that's shorter and you don't want it sinking all the way down and getting lost, it's a great pocket to put that in. So we're going, this is where that marking tool comes into play. Now I've got the chalk pen. So it's kind of this is a clover. This is the coolest tool. There's chalk in here. So let's just use that one today. We're going to measure down from our fold 3¼ inches. I'll use my smaller Creative Grid ruler. And I'm just going to track along that. Isn't that nice? Now I could use my pen, but if I have any concerns about that, go ahead and just use the chalk, because you know you can just blot that away, and we will sew again. I'll keep those scissors out since I know I'm going to be using them a lot. All right, next step. So we've got that done, and now our first pocket's established here. Add pocket 2 to the front. So let's grab our pocket 2. And this is the step where she mentions that you might consider adding the stabilizer to that. So if this was a decision that you want to go ahead and you just feel that that pocket is going to be your go-to pocket, you're going to be using it more, this one actually does not have the stabilizer in it. This one does. I can feel the difference. I know you can't from where you are, but I don't personally have a concern that anything is going to be different, whether I use stabilizer or not. It just gives it more of a firmness to the touch. I think it's more of a preference. If you were going to add that stabilizer, this is when you would do it. You'd simply add that to the back. This is the Pellon 950F. Hey, we might as well just do that. I kind of get interfacing on. Now, let me say this. If you have a really heavyweight stabilizer interfacing, I would not use that. The steps coming up that you will see will make the next steps just more difficult. So I would use a 950F Short-Tailor Pellon at the most, but not something heavier than that. We did initially one with a heavier, and it made it really the next step difficult. Okay, so we've got that on, and then I like to really steam it and set it from the front side. All right, it's on really well. That's one unit now. We're going to fold the pocket in half with the wrong sides together and press. And we will again sew that 1/4 inch seam just by the fold, not in the opening here. So just like we did with the other pocket, with the raw edges toward the bottom, we will line those up again. I think I'm going to use a couple Wonder Clips here. I don't want anything to move as I start to sew this on, because the alignment here is really important. It's completely stacked. Okay. So I'm going to sew this side, and then I'm going to come back and sew this side, and then we'll come across the bottom. And this is, again, 1/8 of an inch, not more. Okay, now is when you decide how many pockets do you want. The instructions will guide you into measure in 2 1/4 inches from each side. If you want the 3, we'll measure in 2 1/4, and we're going to draw a line. We can draw a line with this or our friction pen, and you would turn this and do again the 2 1/4. That will give you this. Since this is the one you're seeing, I'll just show you that one, because that information is included in the pattern. I'm giving you kind of a Jen's version of of this one. So if you want to do the blue, follow the 2 1/4 from each side, draw the line. If you want to have just 2 columns, since this is 6 1/2 inches, half of that would be 3 1/4. That's what you would do different. That's the only step, really. So I'll measure over 3 1/4. And you can visualize. I always like to take a reasonableness check in case I miscalculated something. You can see that is half. So I will just use my chalk again. Beautiful, a nice strong line. This is really important. As you can imagine, these stitches need to be reinforced. You may even want to reduce your stitch length as a minimum, I shouldn't say that. You may want to reduce your stitch length, but as a minimum, once you start back stitch here and again here as you come down, that way you're reinforcing those areas. So let's do that. I'll leave my stitch length the same, but I will go ahead and reinforce. And again here. Okay, and you can just use a damp cloth to just blot that chalk away if that's bothering you. I know we're going to use those Wonder clips again, so I'm not going to let them get too far away, but I'll keep them over here for now. We're done with our chalk marking tool, I believe. Maybe not. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Let's move through the pattern. Our next step will be to create our lower pocket that's going to have the elastic in it. This is kind of a really fun process. So it looks like a really complicated. I'm going to talk you through it so that we can be successful together. So we've done with this side of that. We've backstitched at folds of the pockets for strength. Now we're going to flip our page over. Okay, pocket 3. We've got our stickered fabric, pocket 3. Now this is kind of fun. You can decide what side, if you've got a print like this, that you want to be on the outside. So you might want to kind of just check it out and say, well, I really like those birds, or I really like, I think I'm going to have, I like them both actually. I don't think I'd have a preference in this case. So we'll fold this in half. And let's press. You want a really good, strong press on this one. Now what you're going to do is create a column for the casing. And that casing is the elastic. So this is where I'm going to use my marking tool again, because I'm not as confident sewing a 1/2 inch seam allowance, because she has us fold our fabric in half to a final dimension of 3 1/4 by 11. Let's double check our measurement. Yep, I think I could have folded that a little better. Let me just repress that. If you're going to make a change, do it before it gets sewn in, right? Not regret it later. Like, why didn't I seam rip that? Well, I had a chance. Or repress that. So her next instruction is stitch a 1/2 inch below the fold all the way across to create a casing. That's the channel that the elastic will pass through. So I am not as confident about sewing a 1/2 inch seam allowance steady. I'm going to grab for my ruler again. This is my bigger ruler. And I've got this on the 6 1/2 inch. I told you that was my go-to rule on this anyway. But you see how the 1/2 inch is already marked? On the black dots are the halves, the white dots are the whole measurements. I'm going to lay this down just like this. And I'm going to use my see, I thought I was done. Nope. Nope. And I'm just going to mark that, because I know that I can sew on a line, but I don't know that without guidance that I could consistently nail that 1/2 inch. It's just not my normal sight picture. So let's go sew on that line. Okay, now that I've sewn the 1/2 inch seam allowance, creating the channel, the casing, the next step, and this one confused me just a bit, and I want to comment on that. Mark the center of the fold at the fold and opposite raw bottom edge. I couldn't quite figure out what that was. Let me boil that down for you. Basically, we want to be able to mark the center of this so that we'll distribute our gathers once we have our elastic in evenly. That's all she wants you to do, is go ahead. I'm just going to actually do a quick little press, but I'm also going to actually mark that. I can see that now that I put that little press in. You can measure over as well. You know, I'm going to mark this one with a friction pen. Sometimes if I handle the chalk, it rubs off. So we can just measure as well if we want to, and that should measure 5 1/2 inches. Let's see here, 5 1/2. Yes. Yep. Go ahead and draw a line there, because later on we're going to need that line as we go ahead and sew this part onto that. Next step, grab that piece of elastic, and this is another thing I want to just kind of talk you through. Use a safety pin, insert an 8-inch piece of 1/4 inch elastic. Inside your pattern, you have a piece of 1/4 inch elastic that's about 8 1/2 inches long, maybe even a little bit longer. Let's see how long this one is. This is Yep, about 8 3/4. Go ahead and let's just mark the 8 inches, but don't cut it. I found having a little bit of extra elastic to hang on to was helpful. Grab a safety pin. We'll just pop that in there and close that, and we'll start to feed that into the channel. It doesn't matter if you start on the left or the right. We'll just feed that in and start pushing it across. Now keep an eye on this end so that when it gets to where it's right there, we'll stop and we're going to secure that with multiple stitches. You don't want that elastic to ever come undone, or that pocket will lose this and it'll just be floppy. See how that little bit sticking out? I'm going to grab another Wonder Clip so that does not shift. Let's take that to the machine and we're going to reinforce multiple times. Okay, that elastic is not moving. Not this year. Okay, and we'll trim that little bit off. Now we'll remove our Wonder Clip and let's keep pushing that through. Now, if you want to kind of exercise your elastic even before you start putting in the project, that's one way to just kind of release the tautness that elastic has. But of course, you don't want to stretch it out, and because you can ruin it. So we know that we want to have this line being the edge. So I'm going to pull it to here, and we'll Wonder Clip that. Notice I've got a lot of this pushed over here because I need to release the tension. Oh, let me put another clip there. I don't want that to slide back. Let's just pinch that specifically. A couple of them. Now we're done with our safety pin, so you can go ahead and remove that. And let's go secure that again. Same thing, multiple times. We'll just trim that away. You can discard that. All right, done with the safety pin. I think we're done with the marker. Pretty sure. Let's put that away for now. All right, next step. Backstitch to the casing, we did that. We centered pocket on the front of pocket 2. So this is pocket 3. Center pocket 3 on the front of pocket 2 with the bottom edges even. Stitch from the fold to the bottom edge of pocket 3 through all layers. And that's this line that we drew, right? So for now, I've got my center stitched and I have this stitched. You can see how it's very clear to understand where this needs to be. So before I do really anything else, I want to secure this so that now I'll start building. I'll secure this in the center, we'll secure the sides, and then we'll deal with the pockets in between. So let's just get that so that's not going to move on us. Now you could try to be pinning this, but this is a lot of layers to be going through, and that's why Wonder Clips just really shine on this project. I'm going to make sure I reinforce. Those pockets are going to have tension reinforced really well at that pocket. I told you it'd be a longer video, and you can see why each of these steps is kind of important. I never want to skip something. And you're like, well, how did you get from here to there? I know that our videos are longer, but our goal is to help you just have a great time and be successful, right? You don't want to buy something and be frustrated. So many times we've all experienced that. I'm going to go ahead and iron that line away. And I just want to show you how, even on this kind of light lilac colored, there's no line or no haze left over. It's really nice. All right, so we have center pocket 3 on the front of pocket 2 with the bottom edges even. We stitched from the fold to the bottom through all layers, and we back stitched just for security. Now we're going to line the sides of pocket 3 even with the sides of the front. So this next step, we're going to kind of push our pleats now in this direction as we secure this side and the opposite side. So I really want to reduce as much of the pull as I can. That's why I'm pushing these to the middle so that this lays nice and secure. Just like that. I'm going to do the same thing over here. Just push those kind of pleats, ruffles toward the middle. We'll secure that with some clips. And you're still doing a basting stitch, still 1/8 of an inch. And you're just doing the sides. Don't do the bottom, just the sides. This next step took a little bit of finesse. So let me show you what I found really seemed to work well. I fiddled around with this with 2 of them. And by the 3rd one, I'm like, I think I got it. So let me share what I did. And you're going to find your own way. Maybe you like that or maybe something else entirely. Okay. So you've got this kind of zigzag thing. What is this all about? So you notice how this is the sides and she shows you coming in 1/2 inch. What I found to be really helpful is with my small little ruler, I measured in 1/2 inch from here on both sides, and then again from my center point, 1/2 inch this way and 1/2 inch this way. So let me go ahead and mark that real quick. We definitely want to do, I'll show you the same exact process. Half inch, and then same in here. And you can push your pleats out of the way that helps you measure it. So 1/2 inch is there. And 1/2 inch is here. This is where I ended up using my clover patchwork, flower head pins. I use them for very specific purposes. I don't normally use those for quilting, but here my normal clover patchwork pins are too light. They are my go-to pin for quilting, absolutely, or when I'm going to be just 2 layers together. But this is so much bulk that I was worried about bending them, and they're very important to me for quilting. These are much stronger and sharper, and the head lays flat. So they have a very specific purpose. So let's talk about this. So now we want to go ahead and even out our pockets so that we have an even amount. And I should have mentioned that to you before. Before you sewed this on, you wanted to make sure that you have an even amount of gathering on both sides. And I can see that I actually have more on this side. So again, doing it real time with you, if I could go back, and I actually can, right? I can pull this center seam out, center right now, and say, I don't like that. Even out that amount of fullness so that it's the same on the left and the right. And then you would simply sew that back down. So that's how you could manage that if you skip that step like I just did. But I'm going to go forward with you because I want you to see what's next. So the next step, looking at this, is we're going to create tucks that, now I might, because this is tauter than this, I'm going to actually take a little bit of a bigger tuck on this to compensate. This is reality quilting with you right now. Reality crafting, I should say. And I'm going to pin that from this side through all of my layers, staying away from my track down here so that I can keep that pin in. Same thing. I'm going to create a little bit of a tuck so that the tuck lands at the line. Just like that. Let's use another of those flower head pins. That's a lot we're going through. Do you see how that fusible interfacing on this pocket is just another thing you're dealing with? And you have it on the back of this and right inside that. So you actually got 2 layers of that in there. That's why I really think, unless you feel compelled to put the PAL on or any kind of interfacing inside this pocket, I would encourage you to leave it off and save the Pellon 950F or whatever interfacing you want to be just on the inside, which is not negotiable. Have to do it. Let's pleat again on this side. My pleats will be smaller because I didn't do a very good job actually of distributing that amount of gather. And there's our little tuck. Okay, I'm out of my seam allowance. These look really cute. I'm just going to move that down just a touch. I don't want that riding up. See how that kind of that tuck kind of came up like this. Make sure that it's still running parallel with the bottom of your project. There we go. Yes, because we're only going to do an 1/8 of an inch basting, and you don't want to miss it. If you need to go a little bit more than 1/8, but less than 1/4, go ahead and do that. I'm going to backstitch at these pleats. Move that one. There we go. Cute. Oh gosh, this is cute. I am enjoying that. This is just such a fun little project. Okay, what is next? We're beginning to take shape. So we've completed that. Let's see here. Stitch across the bottom edge. I want to make sure I didn't skip anything else. Stitch across the bottom edge 1/8 of an inch from the raw edge. Fold trimmed label in half and center on front of. Yes, I'm so glad I read. Okay, if you want to be adding the label, this is the step that you would do it. Let's go ahead and do that. I want to make sure that the Fat Quarter Gypsy knows how much we appreciate her letting me teach you this, show you this. And let's just sew that in. Glad I checked those instructions. I was just moving on to the next thing here. Okay, what is that next thing? The next thing is actually the bottom portion here that she's kind of calling the pincushion. And we will grab this fabric and we'll grab our batting. Now I've just grabbed some scraps of batting. Looks like I've got 4 here. Those are cut to the 1 1/4 by 5. So with our fabric, we will fold this in half. Actually, this way. And we're going to sew these two sides a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I know we've been doing an 1/8 for a while. This is a 1/4 inch seam allowance on both ends, but not across this bottom. The long bottom section, not there. Okay, she would like us to clip our corners just a touch here and here. No need to trim down there. I suppose that wouldn't hurt though, would it? We'll leave those. No need for that. It's just those two. And that's where I'm always grabbing for my clover point turner because I want those points nice and, well, 90 degrees. Just helps get that out. Let's take that to the iron and we'll press. And this is another chance where you can decide what side that you actually want up. And I love the one with the birds. Like, that's cute too, but I get more birds on this side, so it's something to just think about. If your fabric has, you know, if it's an all-over pattern, there's nothing to decide, but something like this, you can decide. This is where she says that we'll insert 2 to 3 scraps of cotton batting. I'm just going to put 3 in there. We've done as many as 4. It fit. It's really as fluffy as you want it to be. So let's just do the 3. You want to stack them all together, and the goal, work the batting all the way to the fold so there's approximately a 1/2 inch between the edge of the batting and the raw edges. So our goal is to put the batting in. That's where you want to stack it so really well. And we will insert that all the way to that fold and that tuck there, just like that. So that's going to leave this gap here, about a 1/2 inch. Work the batting all the way to the fold, approximately 1/2 inch. Center on bottom edge of the front. So I've kind of got the same amount of gap left to right. I don't know if you can see that from the overhead camera. So kind of the same amount of gap here. You don't want this tucked over one side, it's centered. And now we'll baste with an 1/8 inch seam allowance and close that. So we have our pocket attached. Now this next step, very careful, be really careful about this one. Another one, kind of threw me. We'll grab our piece of our stabilizer, fusible interfacing. This is the Pellon 950F. You've got the smooth side and you have the fusible. We are so used to that fusible being on the back of this. That's not what we're going to do right now. Pin the non-fusible side. So that's going to be the smooth side of a 6.5 inch by 9.5 inch piece of stabilizer to the right side. That threw me a little bit. Basically what they want you to do is with the smooth side, that's going to be against the right side of this. So the bumpy side is up. What really matters is don't worry about pinning up here. What matters is at the bottom. That's the only place you're going to sew this on. So don't even waste your time up there. Now, sure, you want to make it fit, and it does, but that's, beyond that, you don't need to do anything else. Let's go ahead and clip that. And now you will sew with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So we're going to be in a 1/4 inch seam allowance now for this step. I would say this next step is what I found to be the most challenging of all. So let me again show you maybe some ideas. I'll share with you what, of course, she's written here. You'll have that in your pattern. This now rotates to the back side. You know, you're like, oh, that doesn't measure. But of course, you see this down here. We have to pivot this so that this is up at the top. And I might even wonder clip this here, because I know this must come here. That's not negotiable. It has to cover that whole area. Now, I had not wonder clipped it when I made these before, but let's just try this together. It's kind of less to hang on to. Let's check this out. So we need to pivot this back. You kind of push it with your fingers. That's where that extra stabilizer does not help you. That's on the inside of this pocket. You're also kind of battling that right now a little bit. So this took a little bit of finessing. And now I can see that 1/4 inch seam. I think I'm going to take this over and let's see what we can do. Try to move this over so you can see this. Don't be afraid to use steam. We want this firmly down. Good news, we are so close to being done. So close. Hang on. So that took just a little bit of extra work. When I made this one without the stabilizer, that step was not a cakewalk, but it was easier for sure. And that's, again, not adding the stabilizer to pocket 2. So, okay, so that's the front. Now, what's our next step? Next step is so easy. Just like, whew, good. After that more difficult step. This is when we're going to use our back fabric and another piece of stabilizer. And again, pin back, for the back, pin the non-fusible side again to the right side. Again, right, notice my instinct was this? Nope. No, none of those instincts are right this time. Smooth side, glue side up. Let's put that together. I think I can hold that together, and we'll just sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now this is where you flip it to the back side. This is the glue side, and we'll iron that together. I found something it's kind of cool. I grabbed my smaller ruler because I'm like, how do I smooth this out and not take a tuck? So I kind of I held this down like this. I put my ruler in and just pulled that just like this. It's so cool how it just completely gets out any potential idea of a tuck right there. And then as I pulled it out, I just came right back in with the iron. And now I'll really steam it from this side. This is the back of our project. We are literally 3 seams away from being done with our project. So hang in there. We're very, very close. So now we'll take this part, and we're referring to the image here. Pin back unit to the front unit with right sides together and bottom finished edges aligned. So think about the fact that you have raw edges here and raw edges here, and this is a finished edge. So we'll have our raw edges here and our nice finished edge there. Make sure your pincushion is folded out per our diagram. You don't want this tucked in anymore. It needs to be out. So we'll carefully align that. And we're going to sew the sides first, and we'll come back at the top with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And now you'll be hiding all of those basting stitches. See, up till now on these edges, we've all been doing 1/8 inch seam allowances. And now we'll hide all of that. Grab all of those wonder clips. And those have been my friends. Between that and the clover flower head pins. So get everything lined up nicely. A lot of bulk here, especially right in that right there. You might consider the Super 9 stick size 100 needles or the denim needles. They're just a beefier needle meant to really track through this. I think I have a size 80-12 in there. Let's see if this is going to stand up through this. It's a lot of fabric, and of course with the interfacing. But if this is on my home sewing machine, I would change to the denim or the Super 9 stick size 100. But let's see what we can do here. 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm going to get that lined up here and actually move that wonder clip. Keep battling with that. That's your first clue to grab a clip. Here we go. Oh, you're so good, Bernina. It just pushes. It says, no problem, I got it. And I'm sewing with the 97D presser foot. If anybody has a Bernina, they're like, what are you sewing with? And I believe, again, that's an 80-12 in there, but I'd still recommend a beefier needle. Okay. Let's do the other side, and then we'll come back and get that top, because we know that needs to be sewn. Let's make sure everything's tucked in. You might have to readjust. Go ahead and do that. Do whatever you got to do to make it align properly. You might have to do a little pushing and pulling. Right, because I'm going over all these pockets. It's actually I've got all this bulk. I might do a little bit of pushing. Okay. Oh, I almost forgot. I'm so used to going around all 3 sides. Nope, we have the top to do. Let's finish that up. Okay, let's trim off some thread. This is so fun. Oh my gosh. I love it when it's getting ready to turn right side out, and you get to see the whole thing. That's my favorite part for sure. She says clip all 4 corners, so we'll just clip that per her instructions. Be sure you are careful your pockets out of the way so you don't trim that. What do I keep wanting to call that pocket? Your pincushion. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Just make sure you don't accidentally clip that. There we go. All right, let's get that out of the way. Time to turn it through. And then when I first tried to push it through, I'm like, oops, did I accidentally sew it? It's stiff, it's resistant. Just give it a push right here and kind of grab and just pull. Don't be shy. And that's again where you're going to want to grab for your point turner. Get those corners out. If you know anything about the Clover point turner, it's got 2 really awesome features. You've got the point and the curve. So if you're doing something that has a curved element to it, it's equally as fantastic for that. Okay, now we get to put this on our frame. Let me talk to you a little bit about the frame. You have this little kind of, it's almost like a rubber where all of the metal forming comes together. This creates a little bit of a friction and drag as you try to put this on. So if there's some resistance, it's probably right here. Another thing she told us is this is stretchable. You can stretch it smaller or bigger as you need to accommodate. So let's go ahead. Of course, this is going to be tilted back. So this is the front. Now when you put it on, again, this kind of rubber, if you kind of want to squeeze it and pivot that around there, that can create a little bit of a disruption as I tried to slide my other ones on the frame. I'm like, oh, did I sew that wrong? No, it was just that kind of section. How cute is this? Absolutely adorable. And now all of my goodies can come in here. Keep in mind, this one's got the bigger pockets. So you can choose the 2 pockets, as I mentioned, or the 3 that's included with the pattern. And all of those notions that I'm always somehow tend to lose are just going to fit in there, and many more. Another thing, Anne, who sews with us here at Shabby, took hers home and her husband saw it, and he's like, well, if you do it in guide colors, it'd be a great organizer for the desk. Paper clips, pens, highlighters, all those things. So he uses one in his office as too. So I've always thought of it just as us for sewing, but even, people in an office setting might have a use for something like this. So I appreciate your time. I know it's been a longer video, but I couldn't possibly leave a step out. I didn't want you to get lost anywhere along the way. So let's all literally get organized so that all of our favorite sewing notions are right at arm's reach whenever we're doing our next crafting project. So hey, tag a friend if you know someone that might appreciate learning how to make the project. Be sure to grab these forms. They're so affordable. And of course, all the amazing array of fat cores we have available would make just beautiful these organizers. So thank you so much, and I'll see you on a future Shabby video.